to become more comfortable with it and be more prepared for the next levels of math that they're going to encounter when they get into the next level of schooling, whether that's kindergarten or first grade for them. So at this point, we want to give you an opportunity to think about how these kinds of things, to start reflecting on how you're going to be implementing these. And I think we are getting, yes, we have new little chat boxes. So my 3 questions for you at this point are: what is energizing you about the prospect of engaging children in more math explorations of this type? If you have ideas for that, you can type into that particular box. What kinds of hesitations do you have? What's causing you pause? Because then maybe I can think about that with you. And what questions did the session raise for you? Okay, so it's always great to get good strategies and ideas, and I can't read them all fast enough what's coming in the chat box, but it seems like even the ideas I've been giving have been supplemented by a lot of ideas from your peers. It's great to see that we have some lovers of math here. Great. Okay, so hesitations. I'm going to let the energizing part keep going. We have some hesitations with issues of time, and I think that's really an important one, because especially in this particular point in history where we've had so many people emphasizing more and more time for literacy, more and more time to help children with the pre-reading, it's really hard to think about taking also more and more time for math. And so I really want to encourage you that it's not necessarily more time, it's more focused time and more integrated time. And there are really a lot of resources about literacy books, like literature books that also fit all of these math topics. So if you do a search, and I think we have some on our website, but we can also point you to some of these where there are lists of books that meet the literacy standards, but also are fitting the 5 domains of math. Staff buying in, that's a big one. For us, we actually, and I think one of the math educators mentioned this earlier, we also have spent a lot of time with our staff helping them become more comfortable with the mathematics and giving them experiences so that they have the opportunity to become more comfortable. That means dedicating some staff development time. I do think the practice guide gives a lot of suggestions, but you will probably want some other resources that are just about suggestions. I can give you some examples of that, some ideas for that, if you want to shoot me an email or take a look on our children's school website. Okay, staff buying in. I don't want to be just a keeper of stuff. I want to use what is useful to them in their world. That's the beauty of collections, is that children ultimately take them home. We keep a few collections here at school, but mostly we build collections that then go home with the children when the units are over, and that helps us with the issue of collecting too much stuff. High EL population, English language learner. Actually, in my center, 40% of our children are English language learners, and we have 17 different languages being spoken this year amongst our 100 children. So I think that what we do is we really emphasize connecting with the parents so that the parents can really help us with some of the concepts, particularly in terms of the terminology that we might be using. So we do a lot of things, and on our website, if you look under For Parents, you can find a handout that we used when we started talking with parents about math, and we give a lot of these things to parents so that they can be helping us at home. So if they are using the first language, that will be really helpful. Also, there are some really good resources already out there in Spanish, if Spanish happens to be the second language that you're dealing with. A lot of things now, including, I believe, this practice guide, but a lot of the NACI stuff for sure on early math is already published in both English and Spanish. I see one question about how to know if I'm doing it right. That's a super good question. One thing I think about is if children are engaged and children are progressing, then it's really helpful. Then I think you really know that you're on target. Children not being engaged is a pretty good sign that you've got a problem, and children being stuck means you need to try something else. I really think, though, that at some level, a lot of it is going to build over time, and so you have to be a little patient with yourself about that. Janice, I see there's a really long list here, so if you have any that you think I should purposely address, I'm trying to get through them, but feel free to cue me.
Well,
Age appropriate, oh sorry, go ahead, Janice.
Doing a wonderful job addressing the questions that are coming up in the chat pod. So folks, we have a short amount of time left with Dr. Carver, so please do share your burning questions so we can allow her the opportunity to answer. One thing that I have seen a few times is this notion that some teachers feel inadequate about teaching math. How do you encourage them to overcome their own fears of math in order to provide a mathematically rich environment for children?
Right. One of the things I actually do, not just with my own teachers, but in teacher training, is start the session by getting teachers to think about the math that they actually use all the time. And depending on your population, I mean, things like your basic checkbook or however you keep your money are going to come up, shopping is going to come up, people who do gardening or sewing or have any kind of hobby, like try to get them to think about where they actually are using math, because I think a lot of what is like sort of blocking people in terms of the mathematics is thinking that math is what they did in school, particularly middle school and high school, where maybe the formality of it and the abstractness of it was difficult for them, and not realizing that a lot of the everyday math that they use is actually exactly what we want to be doing with children, just at their level. So if you can kind of get them out of thinking about school math and thinking about everyday life math, I think that part of your hurdle is handled there. I did just see one great question.
Dr. Carver, did you see the question
sorry.
about calendar time? Do you have any insights or opinions about the appropriateness of calendar time, and how does calendar time fit with teaching math to young children?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate about calendar time because time is a concept that's really difficult for children. We really introduce it only very gently to 3-year-olds, and it's really in the 4s that we start having them participate more in what's happening with the calendar. I mean, it's a representation that they're going to see in the world, and so we want them to know what it is. But it's not until the 4s that we really start having them count the days. That's really good counting practice, but it doesn't really help you with base 10 because the calendar is organized in 7s. It does show them a different kind of pattern. We typically have patterns in our numbers. So again, we might have, let's say it's September, we might have a red leaf and then a yellow leaf and then a red leaf and then a yellow leaf for day 1, 2, 3, 4 in the calendar. It does help them learn the months. We have a month song, we have a days of the week song, but I'd say it's a very tiny part of our curriculum. Even when we get to the 5s, what we really want them to be doing is thinking about how the calendar relates to them. And so we talk a lot about, well, it's Monday, what do we do on Monday? It's to help them get the pattern of the routine, not so much just memorizing the calendar. And we involve them in physical ways as much as possible. And just one thing that connects to that, I saw someone asked about having children write the numerals. And, you know, this is where you get a lot of fine motor issues that are going to be challenging, especially for the younger children. And it's not really about writing the numeral. That's one of the ways where the practice guide would encourage you to think about other ways that children could represent the number, maybe like with tallies or dots. But also we use other ways that the children can get the number without writing it. So we use a lot of stamps, number stamps, and number stickers, so that children can begin to recognize the numeral without having to physically be able to write it. And that sort of gets away from a little of the fine motor issue with it, because we do find a lot of children can recognize them but not actually physically write them. And we don't really want to force that or make that frustrating for them.
Thank you. That was a wonderful response to that concern or question about calendars. One other thing that I've seen through the chat pod is a question about whether math ought to be taught more so in whole group time or center time.
Yeah, what we think about with that is that it's really nice to work with the whole group when there are concepts that you want to be using for whole class projects, like let's say the rock collection, something like that, but to work with small groups when you really find that there are children who are at vastly different levels. So then you can really be challenging children at different levels and introducing concepts that will fit for that particular level of children. So we use both of those strategies when we think about, is it something that we need the whole class to be thinking about because of a project that we're doing or something like that, or something where we really could take some time to back up a little bit for the children who need a little bit more or maybe have not progressed as expected on the progression, or children who are ahead. And this is another good place where you can start to use some of the educational technology that's available. One of the things that's sometimes hard is having enough time, to work with each of the groups. But if you do have access to technology, whether it be iPads or desktops, something like that, you can work with programs that are going to work at the level of the child, and that gets you a little bit more in terms of individuality.
Great, thank you. I think that's all for the questions at this point.
Okay, great. Were there any more hesitations that people wanted to cover? We've got time. Working with a team member and not agreeing on strategies. You know, at some level, I do think that it's valuable for children to see that different adults solve problems in different ways. So if it's different strategies for solving problems, that could actually be a good thing. If it's something more about like whether we should do math or not, that's something that's going to need to go a little bit higher up. We have a lot of directors on the call. I would really think that what you want to do is work with your director to maybe offer some more professional development. Common Core, a lot of you are probably working on that. Some states have adopted it, some states have adopted it and then dismissed it. But really, at this level of mathematics, there is not going to be a huge level of variability. I've looked at a lot of the different state standards because of doing presentations in particular states. The only thing that's really different across the states is exactly how they divide the 5 domains of mathematics. They may have 6 because they may have counting and number and operation separately. They may combine some. But if you look at it carefully, it's really the same types of domains. Nobody's leaving any of these out. They may just organize them a little bit differently. And the progressions will not be substantially different across the states. So I think you could pretty much cover the Common Core, if that's a requirement for you, by doing exactly this approach. I notice a couple of other people are mentioning funding. Again, I would really encourage you that there are a lot of resources that you can utilize that are donated, found, etc. And that's from the pine cones and twigs that are outside on your playground to the materials that you're already buying for snack or something like that. Oh, and getting non-educators to understand the math, yeah, especially when there are the math brains, I really feel that giving them examples from the kinds of activities that children are doing and helping them see those progressions, like even those videos that I showed you, make it really clear that it's a big leap from the first to the second. And each of those concepts, we have to break it down, and we really have to be teaching all of those individual steps. If you would look at the full set of trajectories, it's about 20 pages, and that's just for early childhood math. So I think sometimes just really helping orient people to the specific levels and what levels you have to sort of gain as you go through is going to help them understand. For parents, I really suggest bringing them in and giving them opportunities to do the same kinds of activities that the children are doing, whether it's with blocks or collections or whatever. That really helps parents see. And in my case, I have a lot of professional parents who are probably the math brain type, and they just don't realize that the things that are so automatic for them are things that the children have to build step by step. So helping them to see the progression, I think, would be a really good idea. Janice, any more questions that you want me to handle?
No, I think you've covered the material so beautifully. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
If anyone would like to contact Dr. Carver, her email address is on the screen. And as we told you earlier in our session, there are some resources on the Carnegie Mellon Children's School website. That web address is also on your screen. And I'd like to remind you that this webinar will be archived, and you will access the resources in just a couple of weeks. Those will be available to you. At this time, we want to thank you for spending a part of your afternoon with us, and most especially, thank you, Dr. Carver, for that fabulous presentation. If you all would take a moment now to give us some feedback, we would greatly appreciate it. We hope that you will join us for our June 4th event in Little Rock, Arkansas, where Dr. Carver is going to dig deeper into this topic of early childhood math. And also, please be on the lookout for future webinars and events sponsored by REL Southwest. Thank you again. Everyone, have a great afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.